Who's that guy? It's me, Garrett Everett Blackwater, and this is my son Cerulean. He's gonna co-host this podcast because he's my baby, and life is like this now, and I love it. But I'm not here to talk about my baby. I'm here to talk about the 20-gallon subtropical or temperate aquarium. Theoretically an Asian biotope, but we're it's getting very loosey-goosey, so we'll see where that goes. Follow me on Instagram. You'll remember that I had a sudden tragedy and took a little hiatus to kind of go collect myself and do all the things. Go on a spiritual journey about how aquarium keeping is going. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I made some mistakes. And I think you can learn from that, just as I have. And I think it all, it's interesting how it all turned out. So basically what happened is we went in spring and we went to get some new plants for our house. We wanted some succulents, we wanted some air plants, we wanted to see if there was any kind of interesting stuff for our garden out back. And so we went there. We have this very excellent organic gardening center here in Winnipeg. And so we got a bunch of stuff from them. And it was fantastic. So we brought it home, and kind of without thinking, we picked the air plants, and we've got a couple other air plants around the house. And what I usually do is I just throw them right in the aquarium, and they just soak there for half an hour, and everything's groovy. But what we didn't take into account, because we were thinking organic gardening isn't that so nice and safe, is that it's nice and safe for humans, but they still use pesticides, whether they're chemical or non-chemical, probably not chemical because it is organic gardening, but you never know. And so I went to check on my aquarium just because it's nice to look at, and I said, oh my goodness, there's a red cherry shrimp out. Isn't that lovely? And then I noticed another one, and another one, and another one. And if you are familiar with red cherry shrimp, you'll know that unless they're in a species tank, you don't see them at all. You might see one once a week kind of thing. Even if you've got 100 in your tiny little tank, you will rarely see these guys because they're very, very good at hiding. So I thought, that's suspicious. I took a closer look, and they were kind of laying upside down, flailing their stuff. And then I saw one of my Amano shrimp was doing that. And then I had a brain flash and realized that those pesticides that were on the plants were doing very bad things to my shrimp, possibly other invertebrates. So, did an emergency water change, took the plants out obviously, put them in a bucket of water, did a huge emergency water change, I want to say I did 2 80% in a row, which is very hasty and very risky, and it helped. Some of my shrimp they were toast, but the larger ones, especially the Amano shrimp, the smallest one was dead. I had 3 in there, and the largest one made a recovery, and he was swimming around and hanging onto the filter and looking for algae again. And so I said, okay, well, I can't leave all these other dead shrimp in there, but it's late in the evening. I'm tired from changing, whatever it was, 40 gallons of water in half an hour and having an emotional breakdown because my whole ecosystem is dying. So I'm going to turn out the lights, go to bed. We'll deal with it in the morning. And I got up in the morning, and I was all ready to gut it, to just pull everything out and say, screw it, we're starting over, blank slate, whatever happens. And I looked for the red cherry shrimp, and I didn't find them. All I really found were a little tail here, a bit of a head here, maybe an exoskeleton. But what had happened, all the microfauna in my tank, which I have done a previous post about, and I'm very fond of talking about, so all of those pest organisms, snails, worms, bladder snails, that kind of thing, other gross invertebrates, overnight, I had such a robust population that they went to town and they cleaned house and they said, here's an extra source of calcium and protein, let's make it happen. And they cleaned it out. It was awesome. As awesome as a shrimp holocaust can be, but it was quite remarkable, and I was a little taken aback. And I wanted to be sure, so I did pull all the plants. I did a major substrate vacuum again. I think I did 250% water changes, something like that. just to make sure, like I did like a deep substrate thing, so I got rid of all the mulm that's been building up over the last 6 or 7 months, because that was something I've been wanting to do for a while, but I didn't want to disrupt anything. But I was kind of like, well, I got to tear it apart anyway. Let's just make sure that it's all good to go. So I did that, replanted it, let it rip, put the fish back in, let it go, and the largest amount of shrimp has continued to thrive. I just saw them swimming around in here after my water change today. The snails, surprisingly, I guess they must have a different whatever mechanism that would deal with whatever pesticide happened to be on those air plants. And they were fine, all of them. Nerites, bladder snails, ram's horns, whatever else is in there, they all survived. And so that was pretty miraculous. I haven't been able to check on my microfauna. You don't normally see them swimming around all that much in a tank this busy, but I'm sure that they're doing fine as well. Whatever happened to be, 2 inches down under the sand, I'm sure those guys are fine and reproducing happily once again. So, 2 lessons here. 1, don't rinse your plants in aquarium water. Give them a shower. Like, seriously, you know what? 30 seconds of prep work would have saved me all of that hassle. Just taking them to the sink, give them a little hose down, and then you can do what you want with them because they're clean, right? So, by all means, especially with botanicals, if you're doing Blackwater systems, especially if you're doing, soaking your air plants or whatever, a riparium, make sure you rinse your guys. Even better, give them a 30-day grow out to get rid of whatever they might have absorbed into their roots and into their leaves and that kind of thing. And just be careful. Think ahead, right? Like, this was just a very small, very innocent mistake that could have easily been avoided, but was also really easy to be susceptible to. Hi. Yeah, so the other good lesson, work quickly. If you see a problem, if you see all your fish are up at the surface, look at your filters, look at the, what's going on. See if you introduced something recently, whether you put in a weird rock or different kind of substrate, or your water change, you didn't have enough conditioner or too much conditioner, right? Look at all these options and then act fast. And I feel like the fact that I noticed it within the first 30 minutes of the problem being introduced to the tank, I think that quick action really saved it. So what does the future of this tank hold? Well, I recently found a 70-gallon tank in excellent shape at Valley Village of all places, or Sally Ann. So I've cleaned that up. I'm working on building a new cabinet for it. And everything in here is going to move in there. I did a bit of research. I was like, hey, I got 70 gallons. What can I do? And I was like, ooh, I could do an Oscar tank. That would be really nice, I could do, I'd be interested in wild type mollies. Oh, yeah, that's fine. You're fine. Go ahead. Go nuts. Dinner and a show. So I was thinking of doing like Montezuma swordtails, was something I'd been looking at for my 55-gallon when I set it up, and they just weren't available on the market. So I was like, oh, that would be great. And then I was looking into things, and I was like, well, you got live bearers, that's more maintenance, and you got to get rid of the babies and that kind of thing. If you get an Oscar, they're big predator fish, they eat more, they need temperature to be very steady, and in here, we have heating, but we don't have AC, and right now it's been 30 degrees consistently for almost a week, so I haven't checked the temperature in here, but I'm pretty sure this will be like, 26, 27 degrees. Which might be a bit too hot for the Oscar, right? So if we have a hot stretch, that might not be good for him in the long term, right? So there was all these things, and the more research I did, the more I realized I'd really done the research already. I spent hours building this tank, and I really like what it is. It's kind of a mixed bag. It started out as a subtropical Asian stream, so I had what I thought were white cloud mountain minnows, which turned out to be Vietnamese minnows, basically the same thing. They just like water a little bit warmer, also known as cardinal minnows. I've got a paradise fish in there. I thought it was a male, it's a female. I might get a male to complement her in the new setup because there will be space for them to establish their territory without harassing the other fish. I've got some nice plants in there. They're kind of, now that it's been set up for 6 or 7 months, they've depleted all the nutrients in the substrate. So I want to dirt that and put them back in. So I've got some rotundifolia, rhodofundolia. I always mix that up. I've got Hygrophila siamensis. I have some Nymphea, which are not doing very well in the other Blackwater tank, so I think we'll introduce them here. I think this tank is going to shift a bit more to a clear water environment with botanicals in it. Just because I think my favorite phase of this tank in the whole past 6 months is when the stem plants were really digging into the substrate and going nuts and creating this lush jungle. It was beautiful. So basically we're going to have this same setup here, dirted, a little bit more plants, and then there will be an extra, 50 gallons for everything to spread out into, which is going to be great. I might, boost the population of the minnows when they come back in stock sometime this year or next year. But for the most part, I'm just going to take what's there, give it more space to breathe, and see what happens. So I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about keeping a subtropical tank because you don't have to worry about the heating. The fish are fine, especially these fish. They're very hardy, and they kind of, they're okay with the cold temperatures in winter, so 16 degrees Celsius, and they're fine for short stretches going up to like 30 degrees. And they actually benefit from that seasonal stuff. It's quite natural for them, what they would experience in nature. So I think that's really cool. I don't know if I'll keep the biotope necessarily. I'd like to have a little bit of I'm thinking about dwarf chainsword or some sort of low-lying, not a carpeting plant, but a smaller foreground plant to kind of spread out and make the bottom a bit more lush. I think I'd really like the look of that. But yeah, that's what happened to the tank. That's my future plans for it. I think I'm going to keep the lighting rig the same. Filtration I'll probably boost. I'd like to get a canister filter. The dream would be to set up some sort of aquaponics system where we have a little herb garden growing either up top or inside the cabinet. But that's kind of right now. That's out there. I'm not worrying about that until I have time and money to deal with that. But until then, I think I'm just really looking forward to getting the new tank set up. I think it's going to be beautiful. I think that you guys will appreciate what it's going to become. And yeah, I'm just made the best of a bad situation, and now it's all going it's getting fantastic. So I'm looking forward to the future. Cerulean is looking forward to more food, and yeah, I think that's all for today. Thanks so much for watching. I know this wasn't really an in-depth look at anything other than just what's going on, but I feel like, it's good to share our mistakes as well as our successes. I don't think people share their mistakes enough. And so I hope that you really appreciate what we can learn here. And I don't know, maybe you can tell me about biggest mistake you made with one of your tanks. I think that would be interesting to read about too. Yeah, so once again, thanks so much for watching. This has been Garrett Everett Blackwater. Check me out on Instagram. Follow this channel, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Or don't.